Hello, welcome back. This episode, I have Kyle, aka Passionflower, with us today. We're going to be talking a little bit about his songwriting process, the working as a solo artist, producing full band stuff and such. You want to say hello to everyone, Kyle?
Hey guys, how y'all doing? Are we doing well during the craziness that's going on right now?
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, as like probably the easiest thing to ask straight off the bat, how are you, and how's it affecting you? I guess both personally.
Mostly lockdown's been a bit of a weird one. My mental health has kind of ebbed and flowed and peaked. The last week, especially with all the stuff with George Floyd, has really affected me deeply. It's one of those. It's something that needs to be talked about and sorted out. But as long as there's a positive outcome out of it, then it's all good.
Well, interestingly, I did actually plan on asking you that. As a man of colour, you have a very specific sort of perspective on this, and especially in the sort of rock genre that we do, ethnic minorities seem to be very much in the minority, I guess. So, for musicians like you, do you feel like you have a sort of position to stand up and shout about it?
I feel like it's my responsibility to do so because, like you said, being a minority in this sort of genre where it's sort of alternative is quite small. The community is so very niche. So I feel like as someone of color who does do this music, it's my responsibility to, educate people who don't know what's going on or who haven't felt that struggle.
Yeah, it's. I suppose what I would like to ask is for someone like me, I guess, how does it feel when stuff like this happens? Because it's not. I mean, like the one thing that we need to take out, I think this is not a rare occurrence, especially not in America. And like from what I've understand and read over the last couple of days, it's certainly not something, maybe not to the same sort of degree, but it's certainly something that's not completely absent in the UK as well. So, um, how does it feel, I guess, when this sort of thing happens?
I mean, it hurts. It absolutely hurts. I remember watching the video of when George Floyd was murdered and absolutely having so much anguish and tears, and the guy called for his mum, man. That's hard. That's hard to watch. And anyone who watches that video and isn't moved by that, you need to reassess your priorities. And then, like you said, it's not just an isolated incident. It's happened for years. Well, it's happened for 400 plus years, especially in America. But it's not isolated to just there. Here as well, it's racism is surprisingly on the rise. I think that's because we're in an age of ignorance, and fake news and all that kind of stuff, where people don't want to hold their hands up and accept that, while you might have not personally done anything negative, the history's there. And I don't know, some people are so quick to jump to, oh, well, if you feel that way, you must hate all white people. I'm like, well, nah, it's not like that at all. It doesn't run that deep. But also, don't tell me how I'm supposed to feel about things that are regarding to myself.
Yeah.
Especially for instance, in my obviously I can only speak from my own personal experience. For instance, if I go to some places and play some shows, I'll get completely stared down as I'm walking in with my guitar and stuff. Or people come up to me after the show, which they've done on multiple occasions, oh, you have a white sounding voice. I'm like, it's oh, I was at the back of the venue and I weren't watching you, and I thought it was a white dude, and then I turned around and it's this big black on, and I was like, huh?
No, it's ludicrous, absolutely ludicrous.
Or someone told me that they thought I was going to be shit because I was a black dude, and I was like,
so
okay.
What's your approach to situations like that? I mean, obviously, there's plenty of ways you can go about it, but do you sort of actively try and create a positive show with positive vibes and sort of let your musicianship do the talking, or is it something you feel needs to be more, I don't want to use the word aggressively, but maybe more actively sort of targeted? Do you feel that the music can talk for itself, or do you feel you have to sort of go above and beyond?
Well, it's kind of both, because I'd like to think that my music is accessible for everyone, regardless of your race, your gender, your sexual orientation. I'd like to think that it's music that if you heard it and you can understand the context of the lyrics, it's a form of catharsis to know that, you know, these are struggles and you're not alone, because most of my music really stems from my mental health, and it's my way of just voicing what I'm thinking. So for me, when I get people come up to me, regardless of who they are, come up to me saying like, you know, I felt that, then that for me, mission accomplished. Obviously going forward, you know, maybe my approach to how I'm making music might change. So I am stemming from more of a, not a politically charged thing, because that's not what Passionflower is. But maybe lean into that a bit more than I have done, because I feel like not that I'm being passive, but I need to be less passive when it comes to that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I get that. I suppose that would lead me on to my next question then, in terms of people's reaction to this and how they feel. I mean, obviously there's going to be a lot of people sort of saying, well, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to act regarding this. And do you think, in terms of creating sort of like an allyship, so sort of like in the way the LGBTQA plus used sort of like the ally approach to way, whereas I'm not a person who was on the LGBTQA plus sort of spectrum, but I can support and enable a proactive approach to it. Do you think that's something that we need to be more active with now? Because
yeah, definitely. Yeah, 100%. Like, I don't know. I'm kind of conflicted, because I want it to be a thing where we don't have to have that, because it's just the norm, and the same with the LGBT. But I feel like if we're going to do it, it needs to be done properly and with tact. Like, you can not be in the situation, but you can be an ally of the situation, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And like, for instance, on my personal Facebook yesterday, it just went 100% off, because I posted something about something that happened like years and years ago, and it doesn't so much happen as much now, but it was something that I wasn't aware of before. So I shared it for my own awareness. So like, I read it, that's bad, other people should know that this bad thing happened. And then someone read the post, kind of bypassed what the post was about, and then picked up the terminology to make themselves feel like a victim. And I don't feel like that's right. I feel like if you're more angry about terminology than what actually happened, then you need to reassess your priorities.
Yeah. No, I think social media certainly enables people to take that approach to things, because as you said a few minutes ago, is there's an ignorance that comes from it, which is weird in a time when we've never had so much information at our fingers. We've just gotten a bit lazy about looking for the information that we probably should be reading, as opposed to the information that's presented to us. What I want to do, if it's okay, I want to move on away from that and talk about you as an artist as well. But I felt given the current times, it was something that I really couldn't pass by on. So Passionflower, as I said earlier, is you as a solo artist at the moment. I know you've been potentially looking for band members to get involved and such, but how did it come about, and what was always the intent? Was there always an aim to sort of develop it into a band?
Yeah, so from the beginning, so essentially Passionflower has been a sort of collaboration of loads of different projects that I've been doing since 2011. Like, I used to be in a band in Warrington called Kick All Danger, and then that kind of fizzled out. And then from then I've just been, all right, I still want to be a band, you know, I want to play gigs, I want to write, and I want to do all of the stuff, all the music, but it's kind of, you know, it just never really happened. So about 3 or so years ago, after taking a bit of a break, because I was in university, so I didn't really have time to go out and gig and tour and do all that stuff, I decided, you know, I want to get back into it and, you know, really push it, because like in my brain, you know, I was like, oh man, at that time I was like 24, so I'm like, this is like the peak time for me to go and do all these things, and you know, I've got the energy and I've got the fire, I've got the passion. So I wanted, like, I started off like playing shows alone, but the intention was to, you know, play as a band, because I feel like as a solo artist, and it might not be inclusive to everyone who is a solo artist, but I feel like it's harder to get them shows, especially on bigger lineups, because they're like, oh, you're just a dude, what can you do for me, rather than, oh, your music's good, this would be great, you'd be great for this lineup.
Yeah.
Which
do you think, given that point that you just made there, do you think maybe, given obviously for the smaller shows and maybe your sort of mid-level shows before you start hitting likes of the O2 Academy and such, and the bigger stages in your areas and that, do you feel that maybe the idea of the promoters is maybe you on your own aren't going to be able to ship the tickets to your mates, but maybe you plus your 4 mates in a band opens that up to more ticket sales? Or do you think it is just a case of you can't make enough noise to get the crowd going, sort of thing?
I think it's a bit of both, because from the experience where I've done them, you know, the ticket shows where they're like, here's 25 plus tickets, sell all these, and if you can't, then blah blah blah. Like, I feel like, you know, the pressure on that, it, like, especially for myself, because I'm like a 1-person unit of a band, so my reach is considerably less than, say, like a band with 4 or 5 members where they've got a wider network of people. I feel like sometimes the promoter could do more, because in a lot of cases where they are, especially them ticket gigs, like I'll promote the hell out of it. I'll be like, you know, every other day on Facebook, every other day on Instagram, like, come to my show, do this, and to the point where I'm annoying myself, like by you know, it's probably like, and you just kind of giving yourself a sit down going, oh bro, maybe I shouldn't post it, like, no, and you try to be more tactful, but then you're checking like the other band's profiles, and then you're checking the promoters, and like they've not shared it in days, weeks, or whatever, and you're like, well, what the hell, man? And then because usually it's the case of when I'm playing these shows, I'm either first or second, which I don't mind. I enjoy that nervous energy of just playing. But then when you show up and it's just like the one band turned up to watch you, and then like maybe 2 or 3 of the friends, it's a bit disheartening, especially when you put in all the effort to, you know, promote it and do all that. So I feel like sometimes that you know, what you're putting out, you don't necessarily get back, and it's not always about that, but sometimes it's a little gratifying to see that work out for you. So
in terms of what we were saying a little bit earlier on, you have been looking for band members. I mean, given you started the project yourself, what would you sort of be looking to do? I mean, is there a sense of maybe you would like to sort of control the songwriting aspect of things, with looking for maybe performers to help you along, or are you looking for that sort of full collaborative approach where you'll pass ideas between each other and sort of develop a sound?
Yeah, no, I'm always looking to collaborate. Like, I think for a musician, that's probably the most important thing you can do. Like, it's great to have solid ideas, but if you're unable to work with other people, then you're doing it all wrong, in my opinion. Like, I'm one of them people who, if I have an idea for a song, I'll sit down and I'll whittle about, and I'll play all the parts, and I'll record all the parts, and I'll send it out to various people to get feedback, because sometimes in a situation like this where it is just me and the band, it's hard to just get complacent where you're like, oh, this is a great tune, and then you go out and play it, and then it's not a great tune. You know what I mean? It's always good to have that constructive criticism to, you know, grow as not only a musician but as a band. So I feel like if you are in a fully collaborative thing where, you know, you can toss it to one dude and be like, yeah, that's great, but if you tried this, or another dude, yeah, them bits are great, but what if I had this? You know, that kind of camaraderie is very important.
Yeah, I mean, like, obviously speaking from my point of view, I always feel like the companionship you get from being in a band, for me, is probably the best part, because you do end up with a load of new mates essentially, and but from I imagine, as well as that, as I suppose, when you conceive a song in your brain, you have this definite feel for how you want it to sound. And I maybe from my point of view, I'd say, do you feel sometimes like you sort of have to dilute your own idea to sort of develop as a group? And do you feel that maybe that might be something you would resent if you were to sort of give up the the creative control, given that you've started the project yourself, or is it something you feel you'd be quite comfortable with?
I'm quite open-minded. Like, obviously, when I'm cultivating a song, like, I have a pretty solid idea of how I want it to sound. And like, whenever I've been in a band or started something up and they've brought like a full song to the table, I'm like, just learn the song first and then add to it. Like,
Yeah.
because I've already put the work in to do it. So it's nice to just, you know, hear it as it is first, right then, before doing all the changes. And then sometimes you find that people are like, oh, how it is fine. But obviously, if they want to improve upon it, then it's always great. It's always great to hear.
Yeah. Talking about like before, we're talking like well, one of the things that's come up quite a lot when I've spoken to people who are frontmen in a band. There's a perception about musicians that there's almost a preconceived confidence about them. There's got to be this sort of swagger, maybe a little bit of arrogance and that. Do you feel as a performer that it's something you have to live up to, or do you feel comfortable letting your sort of insecurities come to the front? Are you happy to sort of be vulnerable, I guess?
Yeah, that is a quite interesting question, because on stage Kyle and off stage Kyle are pretty much two different people. I'd like to think that everything I do in regards to my music is authentic and that I'm relatable in regards of who I am. So, like, especially from playing a show in a place I've never been before, the jokes, the awkward, the awkward like one-liner jokes are out, and you know, I'm always trying to talk to people like, oh, this song's about this film or about this situation. Who's felt that? Because I feel like if you can make more of a connection if you're letting people in rather than, hi, we're this band from this place, we've come to rock you. You know what I mean? It's like, if you're just yourself, I feel like that's how you'll win more people over to be long-term fans rather than kind of a, yeah, I'll like your band on Facebook and, oh yeah, I picked something up or whatever, because that's what you're after. Like, it's no, like, depending on what you want from like your band or project, like there's no point in you being a flash in the pan when you want to build a career.
Yeah.
I think a great example of that, like of a band or artist who's done that, is like Max Bemis from Say Anything, where, you know, the peak of his band was in 2005, but they kind of that whole chapter came to a close last year, and that's just been built on like low-key success where he can tour the world, but he's not super well known. And
Yeah.
that's the kind of, you know, that's the kind of career I aspire to. Like, I'd rather never be like this big band that charts and does all this thing, but still can go and see the world and reach people with my music.
Yeah.
And I think in today's day and age, especially with social media, there's not really like, well, especially I think in the alt scene, there's no room for like rock star personalities anymore, because some people can see past the facade of that. So I think being yourself is more important than being quote unquote a rock star. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Given obviously I've watched you a few times now, and given it's a very emotional show when you watch it. The lyrics are very sort of, they're almost the type of thing that anybody can identify with in terms of like the emotional connections you're trying to make, I would imagine, as an artist. Do you think that maybe sort of couples well with your approach as a performer? So, I mean, the idea being that you can't sort of go on stage as you said, like, well, my name's Kyle, rah, and then get on stage and try to provoke this sort of emotion from people. But if you sort of low-key offer them a way into your life and then open the door a little bit further with the lyrics, do you feel that coupling works well?
Yeah, I do. Like, it's always great for me, like, when after a show, you know, rather than just getting the normal, oh, 6 set, man, yeah, like people just going, this song, you know, this lyric, or people messaging me a couple of weeks later, like when they watched the video of me playing, like, this lyric, I felt this lyric, like, and I didn't know, and they'd be like, I didn't know exactly what you've been through in your life, but this lyric hit me, made me feel something, and or made me cry, or made me, you know, and that for me is everything. Like, whenever I go to a show and like someone like sings my lyrics back to me or screams it or feels it in the soul, that for me is so important. Like, it's the best feeling ever. Like, it's almost like doing drugs, you know. You just, they're like, It's like a wave. It's just like this wave of, so not of admiration, but also like a little like your feelings are valid, which is
Yeah,
the best.
yeah,
The best
validation, especially. Yeah,
like, you know, when someone can come up to you, and like bear in mind, none of these songs that I play from my set have been released yet because they're all on the album. That's all coming later on. But for me, that in itself is amazing because that means people consistently come to shows or they'll watch my videos and then they're like, yeah. So that in itself is weird and amazing.
yeah. Well, leading on from what you were about to say, then you're talking about doing an album and such as obviously dependent on coronavirus fucking off. What are the plans for Passionflower as a project? What would you like to be doing?
Oh man, I just want to tour. I just want to play shows. Like this year, I've played like one show, and it was a great show, an amazing show.
Yeah.
But it's not enough. Like, and I've been kind of substituting that for doing live streams, which has been great because people have been getting involved, and oh, play this song or whatever, and that is great because sometimes it feels like I just raw dog it and just go alone rather than feeling part of a community. But this is, if anything, brought the community a bit closer together. So I'm hoping that when it's all gone away and done with, like, we can get back to playing shows, but shows will be better. Like, the community in music and the scene will be stronger, and bands will support each other more. So yeah, I want to tour a lot more. Hopefully the album will still be coming out. I'm still sort of sorting out all the little stupid details behind that out, but I'm setting out for a late 2020 release date because
Bit of an early Christmas present.
Like an early Christmas present, because my brain is like, you've sat on this album for too long. It's just more like I want to showcase to people that I'm not just the sad acoustic dude, that there's more layers to my music than that, and I want people to hear what I hear when I'm playing them live, and especially when people come up to me like, you sound so sick as a band. I'm like, I know, man. So, and then kind of recruiting some people to play them songs, and then hopefully they'll stick around to do the newer songs that I'm writing and sorting out, and then we can do it all over again until we all get bored.
So there's a couple more things I just wanted to ask before I let you go. So again, one of the questions I'm asking the musicians I'm speaking to is, music at this time, like most things, is very, very difficult. And what can people who want to be listening to your music do to help support you as an artist? Obviously now they can't go to gigs and such. What would you suggest they should be doing and to help you and other artists as well?
I think for me, what's been really great is that people have been picking up my merch more than they would do like at shows, which is incredible because it's really helped me out a lot over this last couple of months. So I guess, streaming the music, buying the music if they can or want to, picking up merch and spreading the word. You know what I mean? Word of mouth is probably, and recommendations, probably one of the strongest amount of promotions you can do, because obviously if it comes from someone you care about, you'll take their opinion more into effect rather than someone paying 50 odd pounds for a suggested targeted advertisement. So yeah, just show your support by doing all them things I've mentioned is great.
Right. So lastly, before I let you go, sell your band to the people who are going to see this video. Who are you? What type of music you do? Where can we find you on social media and all that stuff? Any websites? Go for it.
All right. So I am Passionflower. I am basically an emo revival band. So basically, if you like music from 1996 to 2010 and you like punk and alternative music, then you are in the right place for bands that sound like Cartel and The Starting Line, but also The Wonder Years and Real Friends. So it's kind of a smorgasbord of sounds that's a bit different from everyone playing neck people at the same time. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, Bandcamp, SoundCloud, at Passionflower, or at Passionflower UK, and you'll usually see this face when you find it.
Well, Kyle, thank you very, very much for spending your time with us today. I really, really appreciate it. I hope you and your family stay well, and we'll hopefully see you after all this is done, okay?
Smashing, thank you for having me.
Cheers, man. See you soon.
Bye-bye.